When I was a boy, I was a preacher's kid, and there was one church especially that I remember growing up in. It was this great big brick church. It was just this gorgeous building with those floors and wood pews and plaster walls and stained glass. Just the beauty of that. And I loved going to church every week. And one of the reasons was just to watch the people. You know how the people always would sit in the same pews. And I always knew who was going to be there, and I always knew where they were going to sit. And so I would watch. Well, I grew up, and today I'm the preacher. And every Sunday I come, and every Sunday I watch to see who's going to sit where in this beautiful church. Brick and plaster and wood and stained glass. One of my favorite times of being in that church is when it's at night and just in the quietness, when no one else is there. And I'll go into that sanctuary and walk down the aisle and sit up on the altar or maybe on the communion rail. I'll just sit. And sometimes I pray, and sometimes I turn around and just watch and absorb the silence that's there. The silence is amazing because you see this church breathes when it's windy out, and the church expands and contracts and it creaks and it groans. But it's not just the church building that has something to say. It's the pews themselves. You see, every one of those pews at one time since 1917 has been the home for a specific family. And every Sunday, a family would come in and they would come down the aisle and they would sit in that pew. And then that family would grow up and another family would come in. And so for over 90 years in that sanctuary, every one of those pews has had name after name after name of families that would sit there. Somebody had invited them to come to worship years ago, and they came and they stayed. It was all about the invitation. Somebody had invited them, and they stayed. And they made that their home. This was their family. This was their family of faith. It was their spiritual home. And that's what's just amazing about that to me. Because I sit up on that altar, and I watch, and I imagine all those families. 90 years of families. Well, if they were invited, there was a time when Jesus was inviting also. Jesus was in conversation with a young man, and as he was talking with this guy, the young man said to him, "I want to follow you. Teacher, what does it take for me to follow you?" And Jesus said to him, "Well, what I want you to do is to obey the commandments. You have to live like you believe it. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, honor your parents, honor the Sabbath." And the young man was ecstatic. He said, "I can do this. I do this already." But then Jesus said to him, "Oh, but there's one more thing that I want you to do. I want you to go home and to sell everything that you have and give it to the poor, and then come follow me." When we read the story in the Bible, the man's answer was silence. There really wasn't an answer because, you see, he was very rich, and that was the issue. That was the problem. Jesus gave him the invitation, but he just couldn't accept it. Invitation. Invitation. We are invited to be a family of faith. We are invited. So the question is, do you choose to accept that invitation? Years ago, I was serving communion in worship. And as people came down the aisle, I was standing there with a basket of bread. And as each person would come, I would say, "This is my body, broken for you. This is my body, broken for you. This is my body." This is over and over and over again. Well, there came just a slight moment where I had the opportunity to look up. I needed to look up because I had to see how many people were coming and did I have enough bread for all those people. And what absolutely struck me in that moment, in just this split second, was that as I had been saying, this is my body broken for you, that the people who were coming down that aisle were broken themselves. And I looked across the congregation and I knew every single person in church that day, and I knew every single one of their stories, and I knew that every single one who was in worship that morning and celebrating communion was broken. They were broken. Some of them were broken physically with things that were just wrong in their body. Some of them were broken mentally or emotionally. Some of them were broken in their relationships. Some of them were broken in their finances. But every single one of them was broken. And yet, every single one of them that day accepted the invitation and were there in worship. And I loved that. To me, that was what this family of faith was all about. But that's what this church is all about. It's okay to be broken. Jesus gives you the invitation, and we don't have to be perfect to accept it. All we have to do is show up. It's okay to be broken. It's okay if you don't have everything figured out. It's okay if you're questioning. It's okay if you're hurting. It's okay if you're searching. You don't have to wear that Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect mask that we love to wear. You can take them off and simply come and be present and know that the person that you're sitting next to isn't perfect either. It's all about the invitation. The invitation that says, just come. Are you looking for a family of faith? Are you looking for some place that you can just be you and find out more about who God is in your life? Well, then come. The invitation's given. You don't have to be perfect, because everybody's broken in one way or another. But the invitation's given. Are you looking for a family of faith? Then come be part of this family of faith. It's okay to be broken. Just accept the invitation.